Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. My name's Justin Harris. Here are my Monday musings. Let's get right into it. So today I was listening to a podcast called A Bit of Optimism by Simon Sinek. He's like a thought provocateur, talks about leadership, really looks at and breaks down businesses. I remember his first big thing was about like why, how, what, and really targeting. A book I've been reading of his lately is The Infinite Game. I'm not obsessed with the guy. However, today really stood out on a concept that I want to get into, which is kind of I'm calling it the dark side or the backside of an A event, right? And so I'll get into an A event. I'll talk about who his guest was, and we'll get into it. But first things first, if you're watching this for the first time, my name's Justin Harris. I've coached athletes from beginner to Olympians, speed and power athletes, ultra endurance athletes. I was a professional triathlete myself. I've worked in data science type things with sport and done some different things. Anyway, breadth of information, breadth of experience, depth of experience. I don't know. So we'll get into it. So Simon Sinek had Mike Posner on his podcast. And for those of you who don't know Mike Posner is a pop star. He wrote, he's Grammy nominated, wrote I Took a Bill on Ibiza, You Think You're Cooler Than Me. Someone who I like some of his stuff, but he's written for a lot of different people. And so I followed Mike on X when he was walking across the country. And so it's an interesting podcast with Simon Sinek. And Simon didn't know who he was prior to booking him. So it was a really interesting conversation because obviously Simon did his research with his group and his team and whatnot. And so anyway, they were talking about how Mike had to do these things to kind of like break out of the mold, and he was having some depression and he thought about killing himself and different stuff and really tragic things. And he's like, you put a couple million in the bank and you think you're going to be happy and you're not, right? And so he went on this long walk. He got bit by a rattlesnake on it. And I remember seeing that, and he was in the ICU for 3 days. And then after the walk, he also summited Everest. And he said at the top, he realized like he could die, right? And this is what I'm going to get into is when using the Everest summit, Simon does a great job out of it. And so I'm paraphrasing and inspiring and stealing some things from him. But it's something I've talked about quite a bit in my newsletter, and I'm going to talk about more deeply in my newsletter. And what that is we talk about peaking. And so what is peaking? And then so it's like we're building load up and up and up and up and up and up. And then we hit this crescendo of peak. And most people think it's one day. I mean, we can hit a peak and plateau at that peak for a while. It's what Olympians do, in track and field and stuff when they're running in the summer and they really need to peak for a while. They can do it for several weeks. All right. But we'll just stay with this concept. But after a peak, there is a valley down. All right. And so we see this in, post-Olympics and stuff, like post-Olympics depression. Athletes don't know where to go, don't know what to do. We can talk about a career, right? A career where we do it, like after an athlete retires, right? They did depression. They didn't know what they were doing, right? These are all like big things. All right. But for us, an A event, and I classify an A event of something that's on the calendar and everything is like crescendoing and building and climaxing to that event. That's the event that we want to do super well on, right? And so at that event, we're given everything. So this is where we make compromises. This is where we train really hard. We want to get everything. We want to squeeze that sponge dry on that day, okay? And so after, no one talks about after. And everyone gets exciting. And in my coaching, I talk about after at the beginning. I always say, hey, we're going to do 16 weeks of this marathon or 16 weeks of this Grand Fondo or whatever we're doing. We're going to take 20 weeks for this triathlon, 70.3, whatever it is. And I'm just telling you now, as I tell my athletes, I'm just telling you now that it's not done after the race. We have several weeks of work to do to clean up the mess from the big race. All right. And there's a process, and I call them these like stages of recovery. And I talked about it in one of my newsletters and kind of laid it out. And it depends on the distance, but there's a stage of like initial, like muscle soreness. Then there's kind of like peripheral soreness, but with fatigue. And then there's kind of fatigue. And then eventually we're out the other side. And like, this is something that's well known, but most people like get done with the race and they're like, that's it. I'm over, done with. And there is this like void after an A event. And this is what happens is people feel this void and they want to just stay peaking. They want to stay at the peak and they're like, okay, I don't want to drop down too much. And then I'm like, I'll find the next thing. What's the next race? What's the next event? And we get into this like achievement, finite, like kind of death loop. All right. And people want to operate, but just like the metaphors, and Simon pointed this out, he's like, there's a reason why they tell you, like Summit, I forget the name or nickname, but it's like Summit or Peak, whatever. But basically where you like get addicted, like you're like want to stay at the top, tippy top. You want to stay at the top for as long as possible. But like what people don't warn you about in most summiting things, if you ever done any mountaineering, it's like the down is the dangerous part, more dangerous, right? Because you have fatigue, maybe you overextend yourself and you lose focus because you think it's done. And so although that analogy doesn't apply fully to endurance sport in an acute setting, like I trained 6 months for this or 3 months for this event, it does happen where people like lose some focus. They'll like jump in a 5K, they'll like do a hard ride, like these things kind of pop in. Like, I don't want the structure, I want more freedom. And this is where I see tendonitis issues pop up because we're not letting the tendons heal. This is where I see people like crash their bike and different things because it's not there. I'm not trying to like scare you. I know I labeled it the dark side after an A events, right? Just, a little clickbaity. Sorry, people. Sorry, Instagram. All right. But the key thing here is we want to build a peak. And in order to have long-term sustainable success, we need to come down into a valley. All right. And then, but like, I'm just doing it for Instagram over here. But like, if here's the start and then we rise to this peak, all right, then our valley comes down. We don't have to come all the way down to our previous start. We come down to here and then we rise up to a bigger peak and then we come down to a valley. And right. And so this crescendos up. All right. But my key things to look out for after race is think about after the race, not as not important. I would take it as important as the training build and really look at a full training build is the 16 weeks to train for something, 20 weeks, whatever it is, plus whatever it takes to recover from it. And that is your true training build, the start to the finish. I'd also say is be careful of setting the achievement death trap, where as soon as you feel the lull after the event, your identity of like what's next, okay, be at peace during the journey as much as after. Look back, look at what you achieved, look at what was fulfilling. All right. And take that downtime as an opportunity to rebalance your fitness portfolio a little bit, maybe a little bit of strength in there. All right. But have fun with it. Okay. But be careful with it. All right. So I just wanted to touch on that. Monday Musings is my place to like workshop some stuff. All right. I'm going to talk about this in my newsletter more deeply and maybe more articulate things a little bit better. So if you haven't done it, go to my website, jharriscoaching.fit. I had .com. I don't know where it went, but .fit. On there, you can sign up for my newsletter twice a month, free 5-minute reads, the art of coaching, where I give examples, case studies, I talk about stuff. So anyway, curious to who's on here, any questions you have, and I'm going to cut it in 20 minutes. So I'll do Q&A for 20 minutes. And then my wife and I are going to go to our favorite little dive bar and have a burger and some French fries because I've done a ton of yard work and we're both craving it. So what's up, Justin? What's up, Zeke? Case, what's up, dude? How was the rest of your ride? Hi, Mary, Claudia, Roberto, Jenny, Neil, Claudia. Trying to stay at the peak. I tried and left me an injury. We need to recover, but sadly, it's not talked about. Yeah, it's not talked about as much. Well, I mean, I just think it's like any coach or anyone, most people are like, "Yay, I did this big thing," and I don't know what to do next. Or, "Oh my god, it didn't go the way I wanted to. I need to sign up for something right now." And it's kind of like an afterthought or reaction. And in my training plans, it's accounted for. I actually should build it into my training plan, like the post training, like it's all there. And I call it the post race super boost. But more of the story is I would listen to Simon Sinek's A Bit of Optimism last podcast with Mike Posner. It's interesting. It takes a while, but it's like the last 5 minutes are like where the best stuff is. What's up, Karina? So, anyway, I'm curious to how you treat post a event. Have you ever felt depressed or like unsure or lost or in limbo? Um, and we can even go more deeper about um, other things. So anyway, Facebook, YouTube. If you guys have questions, comment. I'll see them. I can put them on the stream. All right, but yeah, you guys can go back and watch it. What's up, Karen? So I'm curious how we've approached after races. That's really what I'm talking about, and particularly a race. How you've handled it. Was it easy or not? What you struggle with, what you're curious about, how I handle myself individually, how I handle with clients. Anyway, curious what you guys are thinking. Got a little dry rosé. Kuka Spring. All right, Judith. All right. Is there a ratio that you use to determine length of recovery time based on the length of the training block, i.e., 16 weeks of training needs 4 weeks of recovery block? Judith, great question. I don't look at it by training block because, we could take it 30 weeks and just like oscillate and make different things. It has more to do with the race itself. So you can ask a question if you're a runner, cyclist, triathlete, because the pattern, there's the same concept, but the length of time is a little bit different. So for instance, so we go through these stages. I call it initial fatigue, peripheral fatigue, like subdued fatigue, and then like fully recovered. And don't quote me on these terms, but essentially it's like that. And so for a 5K, like the fatigue, like the soreness, like muscle soreness stuff could be like 2 days, right? Like, oh, I'm a little sore, right? And then the peripheral fatigue can be another 2 days. And then the residual fatigue that you don't quite notice, like end of the week, you're like, yeah, I'm not quite sharp. I'm like definitely better than Tuesday and definitely better than Thursday, but Saturday I didn't feel it. That's the peripheral fatigue, right? And then fully recovered is like the next phase. So it could go in 2 days. But the marathon, it's the same phases, but those are each like a week. So the initial soreness is like a week and it tapers off. And then the peripheral fatigue is kind of the second week. And when I get back to running a little bit. And then the third week, when I get people back into running, they're like, okay, I feel better than last week. I think I'm fully recovered. Then the fourth week is actually where people are more recovered. They're like, oh, now I feel like myself. And if you've done it properly, then you get the super boost. So the next like percentage of time, you're feeling rock and rolling. So Judith, I'm curious. What's up, Kelly? What's up, Becky? Judith, I'm curious what you're racing with, but I can talk. So for me, to answer your question, what ratio do I use to determine the post-race super boost phase? All right, post a event or whatever it is. It depends on what it is. So for cycling, like, okay, so like a marathon and running to me is similar, like a 70.3 in triathlon or an Ironman. All right. In cycling, that could be like, a 60, 100-mile race or something like that, whatever it is, right? But for cycling, it's low musculoskeletal load. And in triathlon, it's a little different because you're running on tired legs. So I treat triathlon recovery more like run recovery. But in cycling, the pounding's not there, but the muscles are just tired, right? And so all those phases still happen, but it's a little bit more hidden and much shorter. All right, Roberto. So Judith, if you feel like answering like what event or different things, I can talk about it a little bit more deeply. Roberto, I think when you're really fit, it's extremely challenging to be patient enough to ease back into training. I definitely want to do more. Glad to have a coach to save me from myself. Yeah. So this is the number one thing, especially when knock it out of the park, right? When you knock it out of the park, you're like, I'm fucking fit, baby. Let's go. Like, let's fuck shit up. Like that's what all my clients, me too. It's like, man, I'm fucking firing on all cylinders. Let's go. And it's like, we got to be careful. Now, I've had people race well, like a half marathon, 3 or 4 weeks after full, but I'm not doing any training. We're just recovering. And then they go and race and they do really well. But after that, it's like we need to really back off and make sure so there's dangerous pockets. We can do these things and I make them sound more dangerous than they are because everyone fucks them up. I'm sorry. Like everyone fucks it up. They get injured. They get plantar fasciitis. They get runner's knee. That's you fucking it up. Sorry. I've done it too. All right. But so like you can do it, but like what's the risk reward? Right. And so Roberto, you're absolutely freaking right there, buddy, is, and we've dealt with this, right? To have someone a little bit more objectively is like, okay, what do you want to do here after the race? All right. And so for me, I just try to tell people, don't sign up for stuff, however they do, I'll walk them through it. But it's like, it's all recovery. It's everything to recover from the previous event, not start tuning things up for the next event. We're just going to race the next event, having recovered and kind of maybe boosted a little bit or just fully recovered from the event and go from there. And you'll carry out. So Neil, can you share an example of a client who recently completed an A event and what the recovery block entailed? And also, how do you get your endorphin addicted clients to chill for a few weeks? Neil, I'll sign you up. You're asking for a friend, right? That's not you. Endorphin addicted. Yeah, I talk about peaking about like the last week being like addiction prediction, like the brain's addicted to stuff and you're not getting as the same dosage that you're used to. And your brain also does a prediction machine. So example of client. So, I mean, I just had 5 people race at London Marathon. Okay. And one of them is Matt. Matt's got to go back to work. So he's a little bit different. But net, I'm trying to recover him. And in the long term, we're shifting to the bike. He's got a bike event. So I said, hey, long runs before the marathon and not much biking. Then afterwards, because the musculoskeletal is a little different on the bike, less. I'm like, we're going to bike a bit more outside of what he's doing for work. All right. But the other 4 clients, like, yeah, they did well. 2 PRs out of the other 4. One was within 3 minutes and she under 8 and knew it and still was close to her PR, although we were shooting for a lot more and it was a little bit mistake on my part. And then the 4th one ran within a minute of what her PR was from pre-kids and stuff like that. So anyway, so in a specific exam. So for the marathon, right, like they've all done their training. And so the first week is like a lot of cycling off and light lifting. And then I think Saturday we run 45 minutes. And then the second week I do a little bit more biking, but like start bringing in some of the run pieces and go from there. So it's really 2 weeks of like focused recovery. And then the third week, it gets back into normal run, whatever their normal training is, but reduced intensity and volume, right? So that we get the density down and keep them on budget because their body's still recovering. All right. We don't slam back into training. By the 4th week is like, that's when if they're generally responding well, I'm putting all the pieces back in. All right. And so how do I get them to chill? A lot of different tactics. My kind of philosophy is education. So I'm educating people and planting seeds beforehand. I say, hey, like at the beginning of planting, hey, we're going to go through this build. I talk about like how you'll feel each way, each block, each 4 or 3 week block. I'm going to talk to you about it. and kind of foreshadow a little bit how I expect you to feel. And if you don't feel that way, then I'm going to make some adjustments. It's okay. I talk a little bit about how like tapering goes and how I do it, a little bit different, because I unload, reload volume, and then unload into the race. And then I talk about post race, like, hey, don't forget, like we have this thing. I'll talk about it. And like 2 weeks out, I'm talking about after the race. So education and people feel more comfortable. My clients are on here. Hi, Nazreen. So they can chime in of like how I explain it, but I try to go from an education standpoint. Yeah, and I kind of stand firm there. Like I don't belittle anyone, but like, okay. And what happens is people think they'll listen to me because they're paying me, right? Why would you pay someone to not listen? I get quite a few people that do that actually. But then they feel amazing because I foreshadow when I think they'll feel good and then they start feeling good. So they start buying into it a little bit more. Now the issue that pops up for a lot of them is if they stop coaching for whatever reason, I really ask people like, please like show me I taught you something. And too many times I see people leave and they're like, they think it's like pseudoscience or wishy-washy, like not them, they can do it. And then I've seen people get stress reactions, plantar fasciitis post-race because they didn't really listen, follow what worked in the past. They think they can do it differently. And I don't fault them, but it seems I try to keep things very simple. All right. So hopefully that asked your question. So Judith, so mostly half marathon. So if you race a half marathon, I would say the post race, again, this is from a training standpoint. This one I was kind of talking a little bit more psychology, but I'm happy to answer questions. I love this stuff. So for me, full recovery after a half is like 2 to 3 weeks, like 2 weeks, really. So all those phases happen in like 4 days. Like marathon happens like all 4 phases happen like 1 week each. Half is like 4 days, so it kind of trickles. I feel like a 10K is like 3 days, 5K is like 1 to 2 days each of those phases, depending on how fit you are. So what's up, Pierce? How was the rest of your ride? It's Kristen, baby. He lets you know to chill the fuck out. Yeah, I'm curious what you guys think how I do this because I try really hard to connect, right? Like I try to get to know people and use like metaphors in their business or their life that work for them. What's up, Emily? Been there too. Oh man, I love you guys I love this. All right, Neil, helpful. All right, great, cool. Wolfgang, what's up, buddy? How you been? I don't know if you're still here, but you can chime in. Are you still doing the luge thing? Wolfgang, when I was working with USA Luge with the senior team, I was their COVID coordinator and did some data stuff. But a big responsibility was running these high school camps, and Wolfgang was a member there. What's up, Marathon Graham? What's up, Suzanne? For real though, he walks you off the ledge relatively gracefully-ish. Yeah. Hey, listen, at the end of the day, it's like trust, right? Like if I build rapport with you, and you guys can say it, but I have certain clients that I can be like, hey, cut the shit out. Like we're not, homie, don't play this game. If you remember the character Homie the Clown from In Living Color, like homie, don't play this game. Or I ask like, hey, how's that working for you? How has that worked for you in the past? Has it worked? Because if it's worked, then I need to take that information in and figure it out. Everyone's a little bit different and I have to tune to them. But sometimes it doesn't. Like people come to me because they're not getting results or they're injured. Now, I have some people I missed the mark on, 1 or 2 races or in certain scenarios, right? But we grow and we learn. So, yeah, these are great questions. So anyway, keep asking. I talk faster when I get excited. I love this stuff. But I do have a hard stop in 5 minutes, so you guys can ask questions talking about post a event. So you've been building all year long. How do you what happens after you come down? Most people have no goals, objectives, reference points understand it just went well or it didn't, and then I move on to the next one. And there's so many important things that have to happen after, from a physiological level, to recover, to maintain health, and to keep playing, play this infinite game. But also from a psychological standpoint, how we approach it. And I deal with these on the calls. Like my clients, are like, man, I feel like I got nothing to look forward to. I have nothing on the calendar. I don't know. I don't, did I shower today? Like, we get out of our loop. And I remember this in high school and college. Track was, the 1 weekend or 1 week or so in between seasons. Like when I wasn't running, I'm like, did I shower today? When do I eat? I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know. Okay. So, Justin, a couple weeks ago, I think you mentioned that you keep your easy runs in the green zone. Is this green zone on Garmin? Can you talk about max heart rate for easy run? So, Justin, yeah, it's very simple. Whatever watch you have, whatever smartwatch, Apple, Polar, Sun2, um, Garmin, Coros, like whatever it is, like they all have these zones, right? Whether it's a 3-zone system or a 4-zone system, 5, 6, 7, whatever it is, the green zone is always in under. Okay. It doesn't just have to be green, because when you're in really good shape, like the elite marathoners, elite athletes, like very fast runners, like a high end zone, a high green, when you're very metabolically efficient, is a really hard, challenging session with duration. Okay. But for a lot of people who are not as metabolically efficient, which is a lot of people, um, it's green zone and under. All right. So some of my clients, it's like they just get in the green when they're super fit. Some of my clients are like ready to fucking strangle me and choke me out because the run was so slow in the green zone. So, however, some people will argue like, well, then they need to run faster and they're not doing this. But like, I manage full schedule, full load athletes who have busy, full lives, full work, everything's full, 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 full. So we're talking to like training budget. It's an easy way to keep us on budget. And I used to do it on pace, but if it was like hot out or windy out, like my pace is going to be a little too intense. But I have type A people, so they're going to fucking do what's on the watch. Like I followed it and I'm like, yeah, but your heart rate was 180. Like that's not, well, I did what or it's hilly, or they're traveling, or they had a couple beers, like whatever it is, right? So at the end of the day, the green zone, and they would get mad at me. So I just put it on the green zone. Here's my little secret. Uh, you know, People get mad at the watch instead of at me. So anyway, yeah. So I would just stay there. And again, if you're only training 3 days a week, don't run in the green zone. Don't be in the green zone. Fucking rip it, because you have 4 days to recover. Hopefully you spread them out. Soon as you add a fourth day, it's got to be aerobic. Green on the bike, it could be pace zones, power zones, it could be heart rate, whatever it is. So it totally depends. I have some people who have really high tickers, uh, like naturally. Some people, they're taking medicines that raise their blood pressure, like Vyvanse, ADHD meds, GLP-1s, which raise the uh, resting heart rate and stuff like that, and other things. And so, it's relative to them, but we set their threshold. The Garmin does it. All these watches do it. It's good enough. Some people, I put it on threshold heart rate. So there's a couple ways that you can do it. Roberto, I'm that Pablo Escobar meme where he's sitting around bored, wondering what. Rob just ran Pittsburgh Marathon and almost hit a PR within 6 seconds from his Chicago time flat to this hilly place. And he had a couple things going on. So Rob's one of the few people who's taken a break, said he's coming back, came back, and in between actually did the stuff I did with him. And so proud of you, Rob. Neil. Well, I also think of that. I never saw the movie, but her, like he's sitting on like the bench, like smoking a cigarette meme, like doing nothing. That's post race for a lot of people. Neil. All right, for half, if you worked up to about 30 per week, how many miles per week would you seek to hit after the 2 weeks of recovery? Yeah. So I hate when people answer it depends. But really, marathon half, like first week, I do one run on Saturday after the race. So if the race on Sunday, so it's going to be like bike, aerobic, first day after, really important the day after to move. Basically, you had freaking Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras, beads are flying, you're having fun, confetti, candy, whatever. And after the race, we don't really do a good cool down. So a lot of that junk is left on the streets, on the blood, capillary beds and stuff. So we need to get some blood, fresh blood, street sweeper, clean it all out. All right. Then the second day I do another bike, and then the third day, because some DOMs like help work through, and then the third day I have off. Fourth day I do like a circuit lift, and then the fifth day I might ride again, and then the sixth day I'm running, and then the next day off. So I have some off days, and then the next week it's like a little speed play, like bike on Monday, speed play on Tuesday, Wednesday aerobic run, Thursday progression run, so lower intensity, you can feel it out. Friday off, Saturday shorter long, Sunday bike, so something like that. Anyway. All right, Becky, my most recent race was not an A, but still needed time to decompress from it. Gather learnings, reflect, always something to take away and put in context of training in the A race. Yeah, so Becky did a B race, 10 miler, but it was like net downhill. So like she ripped it, but like some B races, right? Like we do go for it a little bit. And she did great. But also like there was some pounding, right? And so like we actually like raced it full B. But sometimes what B races for people, like if we do a half, I'm like, hey, like I want you to like be slightly progressive, and then you can race the last little bit. So the last 5K. And so in that instance, they didn't really empty the tanks. And so, I take about a week for a B race, and if it needs more than that, then we probably went too hard. But if we need less than that, it's all right. What's up, Callan? All right. So that's it. I'm going to have dinner with my wife. I appreciate all the engagement. Thanks for joining me. All right. Uh, watch Simon Sinek's A Taste of a Bit of Optimism, and with Mike Posner. It was really good. It's like the last 5 minutes are great. But what I was talking about here is like how do we approach the descent after we hit the summit, right? And it can be dangerous. It's not life-threatening here, but if you're coming down Everest, it is. However, you need to think about it in the totality of your training plan. That's what I do as a coach. It's what good coaches do. And they teach you about it. So hopefully you learned something here. Follow me. Give me a little subscribe wherever you're watching me. Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Jump on my newsletter. I'm going to talk about this on the 15th. I'm going to dig a little bit more deeper, a little bit more nuance because I've talked about it. But appreciate y'all. Have a good one. Neil, Karina, Becky, Callan, Roberto, Justin, Claudia. Thanks for engaging. And Judith. Appreciate y'all. Adios.